This video is sponsored by Video AI. With 10 engines on biplane wings, a tiny cockpit on top, and a gigantic cargo bay, this 1960s aircraft would have been one chonky monster. Designed to fly coast to coast from California to Florida, it would have been capable of carrying everything from cargo to military tanks to even rockets that would fly to the moon. And despite being designed and created from someone who never finished high school, NASA loved it, and they almost built it. This is the story of an ugly duckling that won our hearts, and with a name that you will remember, the Howard DH-100 DBA, or simply, the damn big aeroplane. The 1960s was marked with a big change up in the status quo of the world. Radio was out and TV was in, the Nazis were gone and replaced by the Soviets, and the Air Force finally got their dream: unlimited budget. But what does a nation do with an aerospace bottom line that's visible from orbit? Go to the moon, of course. However, the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union posed a significant challenge to the rapidly advancing aerospace industry. It was one of the most ambitious undertakings in human history, requiring unprecedented levels of manpower, resources, logistics, training, and technical calculations. In the USA, the Apollo program was now in full swing, with the Apollo spacecraft and the massive Saturn V rocket at its core. The Saturn V, known at the time as the Saturn C5, was a multi-stage rocket with 3 different stages, powerful enough to get to the moon. And this is important, as you'll see in a moment. But there was a logistical issue that soon emerged with this design. Although it was to be launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida, its first and second stages were being assembled in entirely different parts of the country. Boeing constructed the first stage, the SIC, in New Orleans, while North American Aviation built the second stage in California. Both stages were enormous and each having a diameter of 33 feet. That's 10 meters for you European lovers. The first stage was 138 feet long and the second stage was 83 feet long. And I bet you can already see the issue. Transporting these huge components to Cape Canaveral presented a serious challenge for the powers that be, as there was no efficient way to move them. NASA had actually been relying on ships to carry the 166-foot long, 40-foot diameter Saturn II to Florida via the Panama Canal, but if they kept doing this, it was going to significantly delay the program, and Kennedy would never get a man on the moon by the end of the decade. This led NASA in 1965 to consider using an aircraft for transport, but no existing aircraft at the time could handle such a large new rocket. Several aviation companies proposed designs to solve this problem, but with unconventional features to accommodate the size of the load. But as one creation, made by D. Howard, that is, in my opinion, takes the cake. Let's get into the Howard DH-100 DBA, or the damn big aeroplane. When it came to assembling rockets to go to the moon, building an aircraft to do the job was such an out-of-the-box idea that it would change the game forever. And it's that same game-changing argument that we should also have when it comes to video creation and the new tools that we have today, such as the world's most used AI video creator, Video AI. You can now use AI as your perfect co-pilot. It starts with a simple text prompt. Say I want to do a 5-minute video on how ships are made. A British voiceover with lots of ship jokes and puns. And then voila, I have a full video made.
Building a ship was a labor of love, sweat, and probably a few splinters.
But wait, there's more. If you don't like it, you can then add subtitles, or you can translate the whole video into, say, Spanish to reach a new market. Or you can even clone your own voice, and then you don't have to spend hours recording and making mistakes, like I do here with this microphone. Video AI is your personal sidekick, and they can create and edit videos using simple text prompts, and the AI does the heavy lifting to enable anyone and everyone to bring their ideas to life. You just get to be the director and the AI does the rest. It really is that simple and powerful, and I'm not the only one jumping on board. With over 10 million users across 150 countries, it's insanely popular. So if you want to join me, you can try Video AI for free, but if you're serious about video creation, then you should get a paid plan that just starts at $20 a month, which is the one that I have, and it will remove the watermark and give you access to voice cloning and high quality stock footage. footage. Just go to the link down in the description and use my code FNE50 to get twice the number of video generation credits in your first month. Essentially, the DBA was a large oversized cargo aircraft designed to carry the first and second stages of the Saturn V rocket. To do so, it would also have a very large fuselage for a large internal area to accommodate the rocket stages. The aircraft would have an all-metal fuselage that was around 200 feet long, and the lower section of the fuselage contained the huge cargo bay for the rocket stages with a little cockpit pod on top, but we'll get to that in a minute. On the original plan, this internal section had a diameter of 40 feet, enough to fit the rockets, with the cargo being loaded by means of a ramp. The cargo bay itself had a large clamshell door at the front of the aircraft that opened completely up. The landing gear was divided into 6 pairs of wheels on the underside, with 2 pairs of wheels closer to the front of the aircraft, with the remaining 4 at the rear. So there wasn't actually a tricycle system that we see on planes that we have today. The cockpit and crew section was located above the cargo bay in the aircraft in that little pod, and that was to allow the big doors to open unencumbered. The cockpit itself bears a striking resemblance to the cockpit section of a Douglas DC-6, with a crew of 3 to 5 expected for operations. And now let's talk about those wings. Initially, the wings would have been reused from a Convair B-36 bomber. The engines for this version were never actually specified, but you can see that to offer enough power in flight, the aircraft would actually need to have 5 engines on each side, with the wings themselves lengthened to an additional 40 feet for stabilization. Because it didn't seem like they could fit all of the engines onto one wing, there would actually be 2 of them, with 2 on the bottom and 3 on the top. This would mean that it would be a massively thirsty beast, and I can't imagine that anything post the oil crisis in 1973 would even consider utilizing this aircraft just because of how much fuel there is. Now, I can't find any details if they considered engines like other aerospace builders at the time, such as the Rolls-Royce Tyne engines, to improve performance, but I'm pretty sure they would have considered it. Because the rockets themselves were fairly empty and flown without fuel, for obvious reasons, the cargo would be light but bulky, so it didn't actually require too much power. Now, the design itself does look rather Frankensteinish. That's because to build this aircraft rapidly and to meet the deadline, the designer chose to reuse parts of other aircraft, such as the nose from the DC-6. And this is all very economical because considering if you're only building 2 or 3 of these aircraft, you don't need to build a custom fuselage. Just throw it together. NASA liked the design and it moved forward to the wind tunnel tests. And it looked like that this project may even go ahead. So what happened next? The project unfortunately eventually fell victim to the same bureaucratic infighting between government agencies. So a full-size DH-100 DBA was never built, and the project moved ahead with another supplier. And eventually, the Super Guppy was used for operations to transport the Saturn V rocket. Despite its ungainly appearance, however, the DBA wind tunnel tests actually showed a lot of promise. And this is really impressive because if you think about it, D. Howard, the designer of this aircraft, appeared as unlikely as a candidate for success in aviation as he could ever be. He founded his company in 1947 despite only having a 7th grade education. D knew that his DH-100 concept was sound and that if it built, it could actually fly, and he's always been determined to prove it. Flash forward to 1990 when D sold his company. He never actually saw the DH-100 DBA fly, so he actually decided to reach out to a model builder to see if a flying scale model could work. And boy, would D go all out, building a 1:16 scale version using basalt foam, plywood, and fiberglass in its construction, including 10 very small 4-stroke glow engines with a 12-ounce fuel tank built inside. It would also have ailerons and flaps on both wings that would work, independent elevator servos, and a gyro-equipped rudder. giving it a total maximum takeoff weight of around 100 pounds and range for a 20-minute flight. Now, of course, this doesn't actually match what the big beast would do, but it's very impressive that this scale model actually does have some range and ability to transport cargo. The little model aircraft took to the sky on August 21, 2001 and proved that this concept could fly. It was impressive that this beast of a plane that was designed way back when could actually do the task that was required, and it makes me wish we had more of these Frankenstein planes flying around in our sky today, because that would just be so darn interesting. What other insane planes would you like to see on the channel? Let me know down in the comments, and thank you for watching this quick little video on Found and Explained.